So it's Friday again. It's very nice to see everybody. One or two new faces who are going to talk to us this morning as well. So this is the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network call, which has been happening every Friday morning at 9:30 for about 2 and a bit years now, since just before the start of the pandemic, where there were 5 people at the first call. And we've got people from Lincolnshire and I can't remember, other people said they were. Amy's in Manchester, people across Cumbria. Anybody else outside Cumbria?
Merseyside.
Merseyside, that's right. So you're trying to get back to Cumbria. So, you know, it's always, that's the joy of Zoom. Why didn't we think of this like 5 years ago? Anyway, we didn't, and we're here now. It's great. Okay, so we're here to sort of champion stuff going on in Cumbria, to find out about stuff, to network, to learn stuff as well, and to celebrate bits and bobs going on in Cumbria too. And today is a really good example of that. We've got some great stuff going on at Florence Mine coming up at the end of July, a lovely new exhibition with a really interesting story behind it. And Alex Mullarky, who wrote the book that I think the exhibition is based on, and Jess are going to talk to us about what that is. And Simon Walker, who's also chair of the trustees. Is that right, Simon, at Florence?
Yes, chair of the board, I think.
Chair of the board.
Yeah.
And Simon's going to say a few words about what's going on with Florence as well. And then Amie Kirby, who is joining us from a cafe in Manchester, who's an academic at the University of Manchester, is looking at some research into the cultural offer and doing a bit of comparison, I think, between Manchester and Cumbria, which should be really interesting. So we'll hear from Amie as well. And then I'm going to big up, towards the end of the call, I'm going to big up the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network podcast. The first full edition has just gone live. You can find it on the website. So we'll come back to that a bit as well. I'm just trying to think, last weekend I went to Cockermouth Live, which was a fantastic event in Cockermouth. We talked about it the day before. And I witnessed a 50-strong community orchestra playing amazing stuff in the church. I witnessed rock bands in pubs and the ukulele band. I made it into the Times and Star newspaper as part of the Cockermouth ukulele. So all go and buy that if you possibly can. I'm on the right-hand side. So it's been like quite a nice cultural week for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And yesterday, I saw Colin yesterday at a meeting of the Carlisle Ambassadors, which is a gathering of the great and good businesses in Carlisle, helping to promote Carlisle, and they were particularly focused on culture yesterday. So there was some interesting presentations from people at Carlisle Cathedral, and some developments about what's going on with Carlisle. And Ben Heslop, who does all the street art in Carlisle, it's been on this call a couple of times. He's also came and talked about and sort of just said, he said some really good words, I thought, actually. He sort of talked about how culture, yes, it can bring in money to an economy, to a city, but actually it's by people talking to each other about culture that things can happen that you can't necessarily monetize or get a metric for. And I think sometimes these calls are those sorts of things. All sorts of connections happen on these calls. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Kate is our chair, looking bright and breezy this morning. All well with you?
Everything's fine. I don't feel remotely bright and breezy, actually, but it's all the same. It's nice to be here and see everybody. No doubt I'll feel better in an hour's time. All
right. Well, if you're new to the call, just pop your name and what you do into the chat. But if you're going to talk to us anyway, we'll find out when you talk to us, when you do that anyway. And of course, the calls are all recorded, and you can see them again on a Monday morning on the website and on Facebook. And if you need subtitles, you can click on the buttons at the bottom and get some subtitles, which are about 90% accurate, I think maybe 85%. Right, well, let's go to Alex Mullarky and Jess Marr then, who kind of work together on projects and are working on a lovely project, which is just starting to come to fruition at Florence Mine in Egremont, that marvellous place next to the old iron ore gantry and buildings. I'm going to let them share their screen, and I'm going to shut up and let them talk to us about what's going on there. So Jess and Alex, the floor is yours.
I'll just be 1 second while I click about to share
the screen. I'll start us off while Jess is loading that up. So as Tom said, we are here to talk to you about an exhibition that we're running this summer. It's called The World Beneath the Felt, and it's going to be at Florence Arts Centre in Egremont. And I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. So my name is Alex, I'm a writer, and Jess is a heritage professional and creative freelancer. And we met at university at St Andrews, and after I wrote the book, which I'll tell you about in a second, we were talking about doing an exhibition about the world of the book together. And we started a small business which is Heather and You. So my first book came out in February this year, which is where the exhibition stems from. So the story follows Ivy, a girl who witnesses her younger brother get turned into a kestrel and trapped in a fairy realm, which is through a portal in her garden wall. She goes through to find him, turn him back into a boy and bring him home again. And along the way, she visits various places and meets characters from Cumbrian history and folklore. A lot of the settings in the fairy world are parallels to real places. So at the start of every chapter, there are Ordnance Survey grid references, so you can go and visit the settings. So I moved to Whitehaven when I was a child, and I completely fell in love with Cumbria. And a lot of the places that were important to me growing up became settings in the book. So like St. Bees, where I went to school, Salton Pit in Whitehaven makes an appearance as well. And I wrote the story actually while I was living in Australia with my wife, because that's where she's from. And I was feeling very homesick. So writing this story helped me to feel a bit closer to home. A lot of the book is about appreciation for the natural world. So 10% of author royalties go to Cumbria Wildlife Trust, so they can keep preserving and enriching our landscape. And over to you, Jess.
Thanks, Alex. I'll try and multitask with the slides. So hi, my name's Jess. Like Alex said, my background is sort of in heritage, and I'm kind of like a freelancer who's worked at a whole flurry of various heritage sites up north in Scotland, mostly in Fife and Edinburgh. So yeah, this was really exciting. I think the first glimmer of the thought of doing a sort of book to exhibition journey was when Alex wrote me like at Christmas Eve in 2020. So we've gone on quite a long journey since then, and there's been lots of organizations who've helped. So Kelpies is Alex's book's publisher. They were really great at the beginning to like help us get our ideas going. We really wanted it to be, because the book is basically a love letter to Cumbria, somewhere in Cumbria, despite the fact that we're both about. So we were looking at different places, and Florence Arts Centre is a perfect place, which I'll talk about later. And then we luckily got funding from Arts Council England, so we could make it real. Cool. So these are the details. Everybody, write them in your diaries. So it's at Florence Arts Centre, which is in Egremont. It's from the 29th of July, so from the end of this month until the 4th of September. And it's for everyone. So I'll talk a little bit about what's on display and the sorts of events we're doing. Everybody's welcome. And we particularly were aiming to engage sort of families and children who are in the same sort of age range as the book, both because the book, the exhibition, it'll all weave together, but also because often like art spaces aren't necessarily geared directly towards families. So we thought that would be a fun project. Cool. So here's Florence Arts Centre itself. Simon will talk a little bit more about it later, but these are just some funky images that we took from our road trip down there the very first time we went. And yes, you can see the old mine on the bottom left. The main gallery itself isn't in the mine. It's in sort of like the old miners' changing room. So it's like a long, low building. That's that one at the top. Very cool space. And the inside looks like this. So like Alex said in her book, Ivy first goes through a portal in an old stone wall to get like into Underfell, into the fairy realm. So when we visited and we saw the archway with the stones, we were like, oh, it's destiny, it's all perfect. So it's really, really lovely space, and we're excited to be able to have our exhibition there. So just as a little flavor about what'll be on display, we've got a mixture of things that were either sort of historic or geographic sources that informed the book and informed the book story, or artwork that's either been inspired by the book or also inspired by sort of the idea of the magic of the landscape and people and places of Cumbria. So I've got an interesting mix. We've got a lot of wonderful stuff from Cumbria Image Bank, which is sort of like Carlisle Council's library. They've got a whole bunch of old documents, photographs, things like that. We also commissioned a photographer, Rob Duncalf, and we've also got photography from Cumbria Wildlife Trust, which I'll save for the later slides. You can see a flavor. And then we've got different artworks from artists who are either connected to, or they're all connected to Cumbria in some way, either from like birth or moving there or family. So it's all really lovely. And then we've got our competition, but I'll save that later too. So I'm going to pass over to Alex, since she is the local place expert for these.
So I'm going to talk about a few of the settings that we explore in the world beneath the fells. This on the screen is the map that my publishers made of Underfell, which is the name of the fairy realm, for the published book. And as you can see, it's clearly an analogue of Cumbria. So one of the first ones is the Bowder Stone. This is one of the first places that I remember visiting in Cumbria when we moved there, and it's just so spectacular. And it's very important in the story because one of the main characters has a real interest in stones and geology, so it becomes an important setting. And we have a few historical images of that site to share in the exhibition. Another place that features prominently is the village of Mardale Green, which was flooded to make way for the Haweswater Reservoir. So another character that Ivy meets in Underfell is from Mardale Green, but he's been in Underfell for so long, he doesn't know what's happened to it. So we've got a couple of archival images of Mardale as well. And then Longmeg and her daughters, the Stone Circle. I just always love this legend that the stones are witches who return to stone, and that if you can count the stones correctly, they'll come back to life again. So an encounter with Longmeg is an important step in Ivy's journey. And we have some illustrations and a riddle to explore the magic of Longmeg. So those are just a little taster of some of the places that we'll be exploring, but pretty much all the ones on the map, we have some things to share about in the exhibition. So I'll pass back over to you, Jess.
Cheers, Alex. So here's just an example of some of the artworks, so a little flavor of it. So the first one is by the photographer Rob Duncalf, who I was talking about, and it's St. Biga at St. Bees Beach, sort of like an imagining of her there. And that also relates back to a particular scene in the book where Ivy's been exploring and she's gotten separated from Kit, her friend from Mardale Green, and she sort of like has a little R&R time at St. Biga's Refuge. So it's lovely to have that sort of emotive one. And then this is a lovely illustration of a fairy sheep show with smit marks that you can see by Molly Ray, just in the middle there. So that would be a lovely big one too. And then on the far side, we've got something from Elanti Art, which is like a little miniature. And it's of a Tizzy Wizzy, which I hadn't heard of, Alex had heard of. I see Tom's mind, so at least someone, I assume a lot of you have heard of, but it's like a sort of mythical little creature that only lives around Cumbria, and it's sort of like a hedgehog with butterfly wings and antenna. And one of the activities that we have for the children is to find the Tizzy Wizzy. So this is, I mean, you'll see it's like close up of Heather, so it's like quite small. So we're going to have it like hidden in a tiny little place. So it's a little challenge for them to find, but all these sort of little bits of folklore getting woven in. We had an arts competition, which closed a week ago, and it was for children and young people under, I think we said about 50, 16, that sort of time. So quite a large age range for children and young people. And that was just the theme of Cumbrian magic. So it didn't have to be from the book. It didn't have to be any particular thing. It was just what is magical for you about Cumbria. So we got a really, really great turnout, and we haven't seen them all yet because some of them are at Florence Arts Centre, some of them have been photos coming in, and some of them are like different forms of media too. So we had some school teachers being like, the paint's still drying, but it will get there. So it's all very exciting. And we've had whole classes and art clubs sort of get into it as well, from Thornhill Primary in Egremont itself, from Fairfield Primary and Cockermouth, and then from Arlecton Primary too, as well as just keen individual children and families. So it's been really lovely to see what's come out of those. And the idea of that is the prize winners will get, there's little like eco prizes and signed copies of the books, but also it'll be on display. So we're going to have a section where it's like co-created display. Last but not least, of the sort of artworks of the idea of the two-dimensional things we'll have up on the walls. We've had some lovely photography given to us by Cumbria Wildlife Trust that we can display, and it's all animals to do with the book story and also the local landscape. So this nice, beautiful kestrel sort of landing is going to be front and center because kestrels are central in the story of the book. So part of what we were thinking of doing with the whole exhibition, especially because of the sort of idea of gearing it towards families, but also just because I like it better and it's better all round, is to have more hands-on things rather than just have it all be things up on the walls. So we've got these multi-sensory elements. They're all sort of based roughly around different scenes in the book, but it doesn't have to follow, like you don't have to go in order. It can just sort of be you pop in and out of the different scenes. So we've got handling objects, and there's an idea there of, on the photograph, of sort of different paraphernalia from nature, different bits and bobs. So they're all going to fit in with the different scenes, which are in different landscapes. We've got those scented scenes as well, which I don't know if any of you have been to a museum that has like scent jars where you sort of open it up and have that emotive bit of memory. I always love it. But yeah, so we're going to have those as well. And we also are having a quiet space, which reflects the sort of homestead in the story, and where kids can go, or anyone, probably mostly kids, because I think we're going to have like a tarp, but anybody can go if they need a wee quiet break as they go through the exhibition. We also are very keen to have it be not just us telling our story or stories, but have the opportunity for anyone who goes there to tell their own story or stories as well. So we've got some different activities for that, which will just be out on the exhibition through the whole run. There's no particular time. And those are the Heartwood Legends. So that's about, basically Alex has found these little sort of wooden trees, and you can write little bits on the leaves to add your own story. But it's all about people's different ideas of the background behind that heart-shaped wood in T-Bay Gorge, which there's a story about it in The Sky Beneath the Stone, but people can either make their own idea or something they've heard someone else say, just anything. It's very open. We've also got Mapping the Magic, because we're all about maps with OS references. So you'll see when you come, but there's like a really, really big, really lovely, like wooden carved map of Cumbria that's three-dimensional, and that people can pop little bits on for their own magic spaces. So a similar idea to the arts competition, but in map format. We've also got some particular events, which are creative workshops, mostly for families, and Right Where You Are, which Alex will talk about a little later. Cool. So I've got two event slides here. This first one is mostly for families and young people, and then the second one is everybody. I mean, everyone's welcome to all of them. So up on this slide, we've got our two off-site events, which is Falcons and Fairy Kings at Ravenglass Roman Bathhouse. And we're doing that with the Cumberland Bird of Prey Centre. So there's going to be a live bird of prey showing there, as well as sort of storytelling and readings from Alex's book. And that is really exciting because it's part of the Hadrian's Wall 1900 Festival. So we're really keen to work with even more, work with everybody we can to do co-created events, but it should be really good. We've also got Tea in the Trees, which is at the Cumbria Wildlife Trust Reserve at Dubbs Moss. And that's going to be a sort of storytelling trail walk, creative writing type of thing that ends in an outdoor picnic. So that should be exciting. In Florence and South, all the events that will be there are free, and we've got different things which are like creative sessions, mostly for children. So we've got map makers, storytellers, and designers, and it's sort of like a more facilitated version of the co-creation activities I was talking about before. Okay, events part deux. So we'll have a Meet the Makers event through the weekend where you can meet different illustrators or photographers or people involved in the exhibition, as well as Alex and myself. And then we've got Between the Pages as our sort of big finale event, which I'll let Alex talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm going to be running this creative writing course over the duration of the exhibition. So it'll be on Sunday afternoons, and it's aimed at 16 to 25-year-olds. It's completely free, but I'm going to try and keep it quite a small class, just so that everyone gets plenty of attention and time. But basically, at the end of the course, in fact, sorry, I shouldn't skip ahead. So we'll be covering everything, basically plotting, character creation, world building, all the basics, and looking at different media as well. So not necessarily just fiction or not necessarily books, but also theatre, film, I'm going to try and tailor it to the participants. So basically, if you know any young people who you think this might appeal to, please do send these details onto them. It's also on our website, heatherandyou.com, because I'm keen to get a good class, and yeah, I'm excited to teach writing, basically. And the final event between the pages is going to be a little bit of a reading from the book and a Q&A, but also readings from the participants if they want to read, or if they want to have someone else read their work. Then, you know, not writers are often introverted, so there's not going to be any pressure to present. But yeah, so yeah, if you know anyone who might be interested, please pass these details on to them. But yeah, that's me.
And here's the most exciting slide of all, which is just a whole bunch of different links about us, the exhibition itself, our Instagrams up there as well with Heather and you. And yeah, we've got our contact details there too. So if anybody has any questions or anything at a later date, just contact us. We've got our personal emails or our Heather and you email as well. And we're basically one person at this point. So yeah, whichever email, it'll get to us. And then that's everything from us. So thank you so much. And hopefully we didn't chat over time.
That's lovely. And I think those are some of the most beautiful slides we've ever had in the 100 and whatever many meetings we've had on a Friday morning. Those are absolutely lovely slides. So if you'd like to share in your screen, that'd be terrific. Has anybody got any questions? I'm just looking at some of the chat that's been coming up, as well as Ian saying his kitten has just spotted the tizzy whiz and got up on the desk to have a closer look. Chris is saying sounds amazing, loving the map references and the hands-on stuff particularly. And Amy agreeing there as well. And Sue saying what a fantastic project, and obviously particularly well marketed for the summer holidays, I guess, for people. I just observe also, and I'll come to you in a second, Natalie, 16 to 25-year-olds is quite a difficult cohort sometimes to target stuff at, because, you know, there's lots of stuff for people at school age, but then what happens, you know, after that? So it's great that you're targeting the writing sessions at that particular age group, I would observe, and probably the Arts Council, I guess, like that as well, maybe, I don't know. Natalie, off you go.
Hi, I'll take my hand down now. Thank you, Tom. Just thinking of that in relation to your 16 to 25-year-olds, have you heard of the NCS programme?
No, I haven't. What's the NCS programme?
NCS is National Citizen Service. It happens every single year. It works with 16-year-olds to build connections and community groups, and they do a project at the end of it, which is a community incentive project. It might be worth linking with them, because your scope could then be, I'm listening to your presentation, could be both sides within Manchester and within Cumbria. And you could, for example, if it was something like poetry inspired by your book, you could then have those shared and cross-shared and see how those different narratives translate. But yeah, NCS happens. I know this because my young person's doing it. Their first intake is, I think, on the 21st of July, and their second set of intake is on the 27th. And they repeat and recycle. So the ones that, for some of the ones that are involved in the first set, they then come back and they might then end up mentoring the second group. So that was it, really.
Thank you, Natalie. That's really good to know, because it is quite a tricky age, obviously, because people are finishing school, going to uni. But that's when I sort of got my start writing, because Theatre Factory in Barrow, the Ashton group, they had a playwriting competition for people around that age. And I entered that when I was 16 or 17. And that's sort of how I got started. So I really wanted to be able to do something similar. So thank you. That's really helpful. We'll definitely look that up.
Thanks, Natalie. Stefan asks, what age group is the book targeted at?
So the book is 8 to 12. That's sort of what we're pitching it as, but there's not really an upper age limit. And I mean, you know, there's kids younger than that who will probably enjoy it as well, but yeah, roughly 8 to 12.
Is it more difficult to find a publisher for a children's book, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends. So Kelpies, they only publish children's books, but there's a big market for this age range at the moment. There's just hundreds of books coming out every year, which is really amazing.
Okay. Amy asked, what inspired you to create the exhibition around the book? It's a great idea.
Well, I'll start us off and then I'll hand over to you, Jess. So I went to an exhibition at the Scottish Storytelling Centre just after I met my publisher for the first time, because Jess and I both live near Edinburgh. And there was an exhibition about a book about the Hebrides, and there were lots of maps of islands. It was really just sort of one wall. But yeah, I thought this is a cool idea, a good way to explore the book. So I got in touch with Jess.
Cool. Alex was the inspiration, but I think for me, what I thought was really cool about it is growing up was always quite a bookish child. So I read voraciously and still read semi-voraciously, but not as much as I did as a kid. But I know a lot of people and I have a whole flurry of nieces and nephews, and not all of them are very bookish. So I thought it would be a nice way to sort of communicate a story, but not necessarily have people have to read loads, which is also why we try and have all this 3D stuff. So it's not just reading bits on a wall.
Yeah. For me, it's the map. Map sucks me in. I love a map. So I'm a bit of a map obsessive. And if it's got maps in it, then I'm interested, frankly. So well done for including the maps. And someone I think mentioned earlier, what a great idea with the OS references as well. That really kind of gives a bit of a, a relationship that you can actually go away and do some stuff with yourself off the back of the exhibition. All right, well, thank you very much indeed, but we're not going to leave Florence for the moment. And there's two messages in there that's worth you having a look at as well. Caroline just says, as well as NCS approach scouts and guides, they're often looking for creative opportunities for their awards. So that's a really good idea from Caroline as well. So do pick up the chat in a second, Jess and Alex. But Simon is the chair of the trustees at Florence and has been for a little while, I think. Simon, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about Florence and what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And thanks to Alex and Jess as well. We haven't actually met yet, apart from this first time. But we're really excited to have your show. It looks fantastic. So that's going to be great. So Florence has actually been open for 10 years now. And has been evolving through that time. So I've been involved the whole of that time, but I've only been the chair for about 6 months now, or well, maybe 9. Florence is coming out of COVID really well. I mean, we don't talk about COVID much anymore. It seems to be quite a lot more of it about, which is why I'm on the phone, why I'm on the show today, because Anne Waggett-Knott, our director, who you all know, has also come down with COVID and is feeling a bit rough. So I hope everyone else keeps well. But visitor numbers are picking up. We've had some really great shows. Alex and Jess had a lovely image from our Fruitful show, which kind of was the first one post-COVID, really the first one this year, and that was super. We've had Artful Ways, which was lovely, some really great shows already. We've currently got Fabricate show on. That's our local textile group from the West Coast. They've got to meet the makers themselves on Sunday. So if anyone's passing through Egremont on Sunday, 11 till 2 o'clock on. You can meet the Fabricate group and see what they're making and see the lovely show as well. We're really doing well on the courses at the moment. Pottery courses are really popular. I think Pottery Throwdown is still flavour of the creative community, and so we're planning to double down on that. We're creating some more workshop spaces so that we can really up that. We're getting another potter's wheel, and we've got 2 kilns now, and introducing printmaking and glass making as well into the kind of range of courses and things that you can do at Florence. So that's in the autumn and into 2023. That's the plan there, to have some more spaces. Been working a lot with schools, and it's great, as well that Bookwell are going to be involved in the and Thornhill, I think. There, I've been working with Bookwell on the Bright Stars project. I don't know if any other organisations on the call have got involved with that. That's a sort of young enterprise scheme. We're working with Cumbria Wildlife Trust, Get Cumbria Buzzing and Planting for Pollinators. We're looking at renovating the whole of the mine site, and there's a prospect even of some capital funds in Egremont through the Borderlands programme. Which hopefully Florence will benefit from. We really want to make sure that the buildings don't deteriorate further. They're listed buildings, the mine buildings, listed as a heritage site, and so we really need to make sure that we keep that, even just as a visual amenity. It's such a symbolic thing, and it's the last remaining above the ground sign of the hematite mining, which was really what West Cumbria was built on. So villages and towns like Cleatormore and Frizington didn't exist without before the hematite mining struck up, or were tiny anyway. So yeah, upcoming shows, we've got Dorothy Ramsey retrospective, which a few of you will know Dorothy Ramsey's work. And really lovely looking collaboration with the Hadrian's Wall, with the Northern Print Studio on the Hadrian's Wall project. So Hadrian's Wall does come down the west coast. It's a bit more of a virtual thing as it comes down the west coast to Ravenglass, and so we've got a little kind of add on to the Hadrian's Wall print project. As well, which is really exciting, with Vega Brennan, who is often on this call, I think, but not today. I can't see. And another person who's sometimes on this call, Lizzie Fisher, many of you may know, has also joined our board. We've got a few more people on our board now, and we've got 4 members of staff. So I don't know, the last time I was talking to you at Florence, I think we just had 1 member of staff, but we're up to 4 now. We've got 2 people who are making the paint from the hematite, the Florence paint maker products. They've expanded their range. We now have a Honister green as well, made with the slate from Honister slate quarry. So we're really excited about that. We think that'll sell really well in Keswick in high season. So it's a little bit of a social enterprise there as well, and providing some employment. So it's a positive story. I always like a positive story, and things are going well at Florence. And yeah, just really excited to have a great show for the summer, which we think will pull in those families that are looking to. I think there'll still be a lot of staycationing despite everybody desperately jetting off around the world again. But so I think it should be a great summer.
Thanks very much, Simon. Sounds like a good story, as you say. It's such a dramatic, beautiful site in its own sort of industrial archaeological way. Yeah, you've got to keep that wheel safe, that big wheel in those buildings, and make sure everything still has that sort of dusting of red, that rusty red that seems to permeate every orifice of the building. So
be there long after everything else has gone.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Very enduring.
Thank you very much, and it's all, I salute anybody who is a chair of trustees. It's a thankless task sometimes, and I salute you for doing that role, and I hope that your 6 to 9 months continues for some months and years to come. And good luck with that. And Jess and Alex, thanks very much for telling us all about it this morning, and good luck with the exhibition. I'll certainly be aiming to get around there and to look at those maps amongst all the other things, and to see what's going on there. So thank you very much indeed. Right, let's look at the time. It's 7 minutes past 10. So let's now find out from Amie Kirby, who is a researcher at the University of Manchester, what the piece of work is that she's doing and what the connection to Cumbria is. And she's in a cafe in Manchester. So Amie, I'm just looking at, there you are with your nice big pink headphones. Come off mute and tell us what you're doing, and why you'd like to hear your story.
Thank you. Do you have my slides? I think I sent the
I do,
PowerPoint.
yeah, I'll share them now.
Thank you. Sorry if there's background noise, by the way. Can you hear me okay?
Just about.
Right, okay. I'll turn my camera off so I can get really close to the screen, and hopefully that helps. So I am working on a project all to do with culture and social inequalities. So the researchers I'm working with are looking to found a new research centre in the University of Manchester. So I've just put my email address on there, but it will be at the end as well if you want to make a note of it. So next slide. So there's me. There's some of my sort of co-workers who are also research assistants, and then we're overseen by Professor Andy Miles and Professor John Macaulay. So from the School of Sociological Sciences and of Arts, Languages and Culture. So it's kind of a crossover between the two schools in that we're working together in a few different ways. So one way is the School of Sociological Sciences has been doing social network analysis to look at different academics and different research centres that already exist on this topic. And has brought his contacts from the sort of creative Manchester side of things. So next slide. So I've just put a little bit about what the project actually is and what we're doing. The short answer is that we don't really know at this point because it's very wide-ranging. But essentially, we're scoping for a new research centre. The particular focus is cultural participation across social inequalities. So we're looking for academic partners, cultural sector partners, which is where hopefully some of you will come in, other international research centres and how they function to sort of build a model for what our research centre will do and what the work packages and particular focus groups will look like. The current phase that we're in is stakeholder relations and sort of writing a preliminary report about some of the literature that's already out there, about different cultural policy and how it's changed over time. Our two key sort of case study areas are Greater Manchester and Cumbria. So the sort of rationale behind that was to look at a very urban city focused area such as Manchester, then contrast that with Cumbria, which is obviously very large, very sparse, very rural, and has lots of different distinct communities within it. So that was sort of the rationale for that. And then the key themes that we're looking at are the sort of levelling up agenda of the government, especially in the northern context. So sort of talking about moving outside of the London-centric, southern-centric cultural model and looking at what northern communities are facing and how different inequalities impact the cultural offer. We're also going to look at transitions out of COVID because that is quite a talking point at the minute, for better or for worse. And then we're also looking at the distinct themes of health, age and placemaking. So this morning, obviously, we've sort of chatted about placemaking a little bit and also age. I was really sort of happy to hear from Jess and Alex about the exhibition in the book because that kind of talk of catering to families and younger ages seems really interesting. So next slide. And then essentially what we'd like from you or how you can potentially help me if you fancy it. We're planning an event later this month. The date is still to be confirmed and the structure is still to be confirmed. But essentially it's going to be a hybrid event. So this is where we will bring people together to present the research that we've done so far and what we found, maybe lead some workshops and get some discussion going about the different sort of focuses that we're looking at. In the future, we're hoping to do interviews with people. So if any of you would be willing to give your insights or you know anybody that is involved in sort of culture scene that would like to give their insights, then please do pass them on to me. We're essentially looking for policymakers, cultural organisation managers, artists, creative professionals, pretty much anybody that is involved in the creative and cultural industries in any way. The key questions that we're looking at, as it sort of says on there, is how has policy changed over time and how has that affected you? What specific issues do you face in your area? Who does your organisation serve and why? How can we help you and how can we work together? So we really want this research centre to actually cater to the people that we're looking to work with and hoping that it will provide a platform for them to sort of promote their own change. Next slide. And this is the last slide. So how to get involved. The key event will be mid to late July, but again, as I say, that's to be confirmed. It will be in person, most likely on the campus of the uni, if not around that area, maybe the contact theatre. But there will be a hybrid option for those available to join online. So if anybody is interested and would like to get in touch, there's my email, and thank you for listening to my spiel.
Thanks, Amy. Has anybody got any questions for Amy about any of that? Stefan's just asking, Amy, are you in touch with Daniel McTeague, I think, who leads the Creative Places? Sorry, I can't remember what CPP stands for in Bowder. Can someone help me? Stefan, do you want to just come off mute and ask that question?
Sorry, are you nodding there, Amy?
Yes, I was. I was just going to say it's Creative People and Places, I believe.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel is actually how I heard about the network. So yes, I have spoken to him a little bit.
And Lorraine Smythe will be another person to contact because she's very involved with the consortium who are about to appoint people to run the new CPP in West Cumbria.
So Amy, are you nodding there, Amy? You know about Lorraine as well, do you?
Lorraine?
No, I was nodding because that is helpful. So thank you.
Cool. I'm sure Daniel can put you in touch.
Yeah. Jess, you got your hand up.
I have indeed. So that sounds really interesting, Amy. I'm not from that area, but I grew up in Fife, which is kind of like a rural post-industrial stretch in Edinburgh and St. Andrews. So another place where there's culture nearby, but not always brought to there, or culture. But just an idea for contacting freelancers, you could try the Group for Education and Museum.
Jess, you're just frozen if you're still there. We'll come back to Jess because I think she was about to say something profound. So Jill, off you go.
Hi, I just met a guy called Curtis James, he's currently about to interview Fiona Miller, if you remember her. But he's making a series of podcasts about perpetuating social inequalities, and cultural inequality is part of it. And I think he'd be extremely interested to to know about this. And as I know through Andy Miles, because I'm on a governing body with him, I'll get to him about it too, because it sounds like as if there's a whole group of people looking into how culture can help and why cultural inequalities reinforce social inequality. And that's Curtis James Bag. I could put his email into the chat.
That'd be great, Jill, if you could do that.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful.
Thanks, Amy. Ian's just saying Manchester's a fair hike from Cumbria. He's absolutely right. It's about just under 2 hours on the train.
Yes.
From Carlisle. Do you not
so
need an event in Cumbria as well?
This is something that I did mention to the team. So because we are obviously based in Manchester and quite Manchester centric, there's one research assistant that's looking at Manchester organisations, and I was sort of tasked with looking at Cumbria. And I said to them that, if we want to make this as engaging as possible and we want to work with people in Cumbria, we kind of need an in-person event in Cumbria. So that has been a conversation, and I'm hoping that, I think we're planning a second event in September, so hopefully that will be in Cumbria. But more details to follow on that as we have it.
Okay, great. And obviously Cumbria's a big old place. It's 2 hours from Carlisle to Barrow by car. So make sure that you have if you want to talk to us about how we can help you to make that happen, then feel free to do so. Yes,
yeah,
you're back.
Be great.
Yes, you're back. You froze halfway through what you were saying. Do you want to come, just carry on?
No, that's all right. I tried to be profound. I could hear you, but I was trapped in the Wi-Fi box. It was just that I'm working a lot with sort of kids and things like that. There's a Group for Education and Museums, which I've linked there, and they have regional groups. So that might be a way to get in touch with freelancers, because sometimes they're a bit dotted all around, as well as lovely chats like this. But I just thought I'd throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
Kathleen, what do you mean by that? This is typical of cultural inequality. Cumbria is one of the best examples. Tell us what you mean by that.
I mean that Cumbria, because of its geographical location, and because it doesn't have a big centre of population, has always been subject to cultural inequality. Everything was either, when we were part of Northern Arts, everything was centred in Newcastle, and Cumbria got the short end of the stick. Then we were transferred over into Northwest Arts region, and everything is suddenly centred on Manchester and Liverpool. And they're a very, very long way away from us. They might as well be in London. Cumbria suffers from absolutely enormous cultural inequality. And I think this is something that needs to be addressed. It is partly geographical, but we have such amazing cultural resources here, in every form of the arts. And I think, I'm quite passionate about this.
Amie, does that make sense?
Makes absolute sense.
I think Kathleen ought to be one of your interviewees by the sound of things. Kate.
It's indisputable what you've said, Kathleen. I think it's also worth adding that there's such a lot happening to try and counter that these days. So many great people working in so many different combinations, like Barrowful and Barrow, and the new CPP in West Cumbria, but also the organisations and individuals working together kind of break down some of those barriers. I think it's such a massive priority for anybody who's funded by Arts Council. It's true, but I don't think we should feel too negative about it. I feel like we should just keep putting our shoulder to the wheel to change it, and that's hopefully, the network has a little role to play there in enabling people to work together to make a difference.
Thank you, Kate. Anybody else want to chip in with any thoughts about what Amie is doing, or any just observations that might be useful for her to hear at this stage? Because July we're in July already, so this moment is happening quite soon at the University of Manchester by the sound of things. It's great to hear that you might well do something up here in September as well. Any other observations from anyone else?
Sorry to keep talking as the non-Cumbria person, but just because I've done a wee bit on like sort of science capital, cultural capital before, similar types of things. I don't know if you have the scope for it, but it could be cool to do some interviews with audiences at like the people who are coming in as visitors, as well as sort of the organizers, because that might be a different perspective on things too. Sorry if you've already thought of that.
No, that's
No, I mean, thought of it, but definitely I agree that's really important, so thank you.
Yeah, the population of Cumbria is about 500,000, and we get about 16 million visitors a year, largely to the Lake District, obviously, but obviously there's other bits to Cumbria than the Lake District as well. So my encouragement to you, Amie, would also be, if I'm not trying to teach Granny how to suck eggs, but remember that Cumbria is a lot more than the Lake District, and there's much more to it than just the honeypot bit, as it were. Simon.
Yeah, just to say that there is also a piece of work being done at the moment, an arts and culture strategy for Copeland and Allerdale, so for the West Coast, so it might be worth linking up with that. I've lost track of where it is a little bit, but through the councils, I can send on some details anyway, if you haven't come across that. And to reiterate that the creative people and places in West Cumbria would definitely like to talk to you about the research. That would be really useful.
Yeah. Any particular reason why Cumbria is chosen as the comparison, Amie, just to finish with? Why was Cumbria sort of chosen as the comparison? Is it supposed to be just like a completely diametrically different to Manchester?
So I think, John and Andy picked the sort of case study regions, and we originally had 3. So we had Manchester, Cumbria, and I think it was Northumbria as well. And just because of the scope of the project and the limited time that we have to fit down to 2. Just because primarily that was the most work that we'd done the most on Manchester and Cumbria. I think the idea sort of sprang from the idea of the levelling up agenda, and particularly in the north. So the Case for Culture report from the parliamentary group for the north. I think that particularly was what sparked it. And then I think the idea was to have Manchester, Cumbria, and then Northumbria as sort of like looking at different regions across the north, and then we just had to cut it down essentially.
Okay, thank you for that. Because we've heard most of what you said, Amie, but it is quite noisy where you are. Would you be okay? Those slides that you sent to me to share for you, am I okay to put those on our Facebook group, which is a sort of about 1,000 people? Is that all right? And obviously it's got your contacts there as well. So we'll get those put onto the Facebook group. Don't worry about the noise. And Amie will probably work some magic, and then you might pick up some more reaction from people beyond this call. So thank you very much for letting us know about that. And you know, as with all these things, I hope that if a report or a centre is built or created, that action happens as a result of it, and it's not just conversations. I hope action and maybe money is put towards Cumbria as a result, or whatever it might be. I'm probably looking at it very simplistically there, but thank you very much. Right, I'm conscious of time. It's 10:26. I just wanted to highlight the fact that we have just done a nice new full 30-minute length edition of the podcast, the brand new podcast, which is called Behind the Scenery. And just to help you understand how you can look at it if you want to, I'm just going to take you to the website, which is here, and you'll see it sitting there, episode 1, Behind the Scenery. You can also find it on Spotify, and it's got some lovely stuff there from Soundwave in Workington. I went to Rosehill Theatre and spoke to Daniel, a lovely poem from Kendal Poetry Festival there. There's a lovely song in the middle of the Soundwave piece as well, and also a longer interview with Carmen, who was the writer of The Climbers, which is the current play on at Theatre by the Lake. I would love some feedback. There's also a snippet of Chris Dennett on there as well, some weird sounds that Chris Dennett once made for me, which we'll find out more about in the next episode, but there's a little teaser ahead there. So I would love some feedback about this podcast. So either find it on Spotify, play it from the website as you're walking around, or just on your desktop as you're working away. And please let me know what you think of it. And there'll be another one in about 3 weeks' time. I'm aiming to do one about every month, a little bit under every month if I possibly can. And thank you to those of you that have already contacted me with ideas. There's been quite a few ideas come through already, which is fantastic. And I shall try and be as creative as I can be and as interesting to you all as I can be as well. Right, well, next week it's Chris Bridgman in the chair. He'll do a much better job than I will, and he will look after you very, very well. We're going to look at the Lakeland Arts programme for the summer and the autumn. Leah is going to come on and talk to us about that. She's in charge of marketing for Lakeland Arts. There's a possibility we might hear about the Lake District Summer Music Programme. Conversations taking place about that, and also a little bit of under the bonnet. We've been mucking around and solidifying the constitution of this network as well. Chris has been doing some work there, and he'll just tell you as to how far we've got with that for next week as well. So there will certainly be a call next week, and Chris and Amie will be in the chair. But I think that's it for this week. It's been really interesting actually hearing about that stuff going on in Manchester academically, but also all the stuff going on at Florence as well. If you can get to Florence to see what's going on there, then make a nice cup of coffee and have nice cakes there too. And if you fancy buying some of that beautiful paint, it's really special stuff to enjoy your trip to Egremont. And I think it's getting warmer for the next few days. So enjoy the sunshine, whether you're in Lincolnshire or Liverpool or Manchester or Cumbria. I'm actually going to Wales, that's where I'll be. So pray for sunshine on the Welsh Pembrokeshire coast as well. Nice to see you all. Thank you for your time this morning, and catch you again soon. Bye-bye.